Mitch Matthews, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
This is so awesome, Meg. I'm so honored to be here. So excited for this conversation.
As am I. Our listeners know that I do exploratory calls with my guests because I think it makes a better experience for them. And I got to tell you, your energy in the exploratory call was off the charts. I was so excited. It's been a couple weeks, and I'm like, when do I get to interview Mitch? And now it's today. So
I love it. And I love that you do that. That just speaks to your intentionality. I know there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of different ways to prepare for a conversation, but I was looking forward to the conversation at a whole new level today too because of that. So I love your approach and this is great.
Well, today we're going to talk about permission. What is what is the value of giving ourselves permission, and what's the cost if we don't? We're going to dive into a lot of that, and I'm going to tell you more about Mitch in just a second. As we settle into today's show, I just want to thank all of you for being here with us, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening to us in the many, many platforms that the Star Coach Show is on. Got a favor to ask. Like, take a second, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, because I have incredible guests like Mitch all the time on the show. And do you really want to miss a minute of it? No. Let me answer that for you. You don't. So the best way to not miss a minute is to have it come into your feed. And on the YouTube channel, we have special stuff coming up all the time that you want to be informed about as well. So take a second, go over to YouTube at Star Coach Show, hit the subscribe button, and then your life will be just that much better. And you're welcome. And no, thank you so much for doing that. And with that, let's talk about my incredible guest today. So Mitch Matthews. Mitch and I were talking right before we hit the record button that we are in that percentage of podcasts that have been going more than a minute and are still going. So Mitch started his podcast, are you ready for this? Dream, Think, Do podcast. How cool is that? Because he loves to help leaders and entrepreneurs, including coaches like you, dream bigger, think better, and do more. And that's what we're on the planet to do, right? To really lean into what are we on the planet to do. And I know that my audience, Mitch, is super passionate about leading well and coaching people into their greatness. And I know that we are going to talk about what they can do today to do that. So Mitch started his podcast in 2015. I started this podcast in 2016. We were like toddlers together. And now we're still doing the thing and loving it. We were talking, I mean, Mitch interviews Olympic athletes, New York Times bestsellers, top business leaders. He's out there rubbing elbows with incredible people, just like I get the opportunity to do. So we were just talking about how lucky we are to do the work that we do and to bring this forward. So because Mitch is equally passionate about helping people bring their dreams to fruition, who wouldn't want Mitch on the show? Everybody wants Mitch on the show. So I'm lucky enough to have Mitch on my show. Mitch, we're going to talk about giving permission.
I love it. I love it.
I am
Thank you
so
so much
excited
for
to
that
do that.
intro. I'm ready to go. Like, let's go.
Like,
And this is awesome.
all right.
Yeah. And I
We're
love the
rocking
thought
and
that we
rolling.
were in pre-K together. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
we were in kindergarten together, for crying out loud. I love it. I love it. We've learned so much. So yes, let's get to it. Let's talk about permission.
Let's get to it. So permission, where do we even want to start with
Right.
this concept of permission?
Well, I don't know about you, but I think, I do know you, and I have a feeling about your audience. You've got a lot of high achievers, you've got a lot of leaders, you got a lot of globe changers, people who have been wildly successful in different tracks and different areas and different careers and all of that. And it's fantastic, right? But what's interesting is that I find with high achievers, because that's who I coach as well. What's interesting about high achievers is achieving a lot of success is fantastic, and it's what we're put on the planet to do, but it also can get dangerous because sometimes when we start to achieve at a high level, we oftentimes get noticed, we oftentimes get promoted, we oftentimes get to lead, all of those things, which is great. It's part of the reward of working hard and doing what we do. But oftentimes, for high achievers, what happens, the danger within that is then we start to either bury new dreams or not consider new dreams, new callings, things that we're feeling like might be the next season. We're less likely to do it because we've already achieved at a high level. We've been seen at a high level. We're known for certain things. So I find that with high achievers, the danger is we quietly, subtly stop dreaming. And for high achievers, it's a really different conversation around dreaming new dreams or dreaming bigger dreams. And that conversation has to start with permission, because people don't think, if you've achieved a lot, if you're highly successful, people don't think, oh, that person's not dreaming anymore. But it happens all the time. We start to do the same things over and over, the things that have
Right.
brought us that success. And I just recently interviewed a neuroscientist on my podcast. Very fascinating conversation. But she brought up this thing that so relates to permission. And it's the reason why she quit her highly influential, highly paid job at Google. And it was because she started to experience high levels of dissatisfaction with her job, not because she was burnt out. It was because she was bored out. And she said that bored out is a lesser known, dangerous cousin of burnout. And that burnout often happens because we're fatigued, because of load, because of stress. Bored out often feels like burnout, but it's because we're doing the same things over and over and see no break in sight, nothing new in sight. And she said, that's why I had to quit Google. And I love this conversation because I know you're talking to high achievers, you're talking to coaches that are really changing the world. But boy, it's dangerous sometimes for those high achievers when we stop dreaming new dreams, when we stop dreaming bigger dreams. And so we have to start with the permission conversation because it's sneaky, right? And we have to say,
Right.
all right, what do I want to give myself permission to dream again? Or what do I want to give myself permission to dream for the first time? Because sometimes when
Yeah.
we've achieved those higher levels, sometimes we feel a little bit more exposed, and it's a little bit harder to convince ourselves, right, to motivate ourselves to try something new because it feels like we might fall further than when
And
we
it's
started this.
vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
vulnerable, and I'm so good at this. What if
Right,
I'm not good at that?
right,
Or
and it's
I'm gonna have to go through the learning curve, and then I'm not gonna be just the go-to expert. I see
exactly.
that all the time as coaches come through the programs that I teach in. It's like, and I think it's part of their Achilles tendon of staying curious, of being comfortable not
Absolutely.
knowing, which is what makes coaches masterful coaches. But it's like, but my claim to fame is I know the answers.
I'm
I
the person people seek out, right? And that's
exactly.
great. That's great. But it's that thing of how do you especially for coaches, right? We want to be a product of the process. We want to continue to stay in integrity and, do the things that we coach other people to do. But this is one of those areas that's extra sneaky, right? It's that thing of
Right.
we also don't want to break stuff that seems to be working, right? We don't want to
Right.
try new things because, like you said, it may make us look like we don't know what we're doing or we're less influential or those types of things. So it's such an important conversation. That's why I'm glad we're having it.
Me too. So what are some of the things we talked about in our explore, we've got to give ourselves permission to like be the novice at something
Right.
new, right?
That's
If we
exactly
don't
right.
want to board out, we need to stretch. We
Yep.
need to challenge ourselves to like walk into the unknown sometimes, and that can
Yep.
be scary.
Absolutely. Well, and it's you and we geek out on brain science and those types of things, and I love talking about this because it's so important, and sometimes it can feel intangible. But what I love about this conversation is there is neuroscience involved in this conversation. There is strategy that's involved in this conversation because I love that. Like each year, I give myself permission to be a novice. I force myself to be a novice in at least one new area each year. Because what's interesting, and we get into the brain science of this a little bit, is especially if we've had some success, if we've had some experience in a career track, in a leadership role, in a business. There's a part of our brain, the amygdala, that what I call the body's or the brain's bodyguard, basically scanning the horizon, looking for anything that might be of danger. When we start to feel like a novice, that pings that brain's bodyguard as that's danger. We haven't felt being new at something for a while. That causes tension. Tension is bad. We must not do it. And so you have to soothe that brain's bodyguard to say, no, I'm choosing to be a novice. I'm choosing to try something new. I'm choosing to step into the unknown. Now, I don't do it from the standpoint of like saying, hey, I'm going to skydive this year. I'm just going to go up with a parachute and hope it works out, right? It's not
Yeah.
that level of stuff, but it can say, hey, I'm going to take 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and just study something new, dig into
Mhm.
something new, try something new. And sometimes it's hilarious. I mean, not to sound, I definitely want to clarify it that sometimes the things I pick to be a novice at are hilarious and sometimes even somewhat embarrassing. Like one of my most recent ones, you'll love this, Meg, is I grew up an Indiana Jones fan, right? Like I
Ah,
loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. I loved Indiana Jones, all that stuff. So one of the things that I chose to be a novice at was to crack a bullwhip, which you might think is, oh, well, that's a given. Look how Indiana Jones does that. Harrison
no.
Ford did
Well,
that. It was super easy, right? It's not as easy as you might think, especially
no,
with
I
a whip
wouldn't
that
think it
length.
is.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
it's, and then when you're learning how to do it, you also whip yourself. Like you can't help but you have to wear safety glasses, you have to wear pants because that whip is vengeful, right? Like it wants you to know who's boss. So I mean, it can be those type of things. At the same time, I'm learning new things when it comes to sales funnels and
Right.
email strategy and all those things. But sometimes you have to inject a little bit of fun in that whole novice experience because it does allow your brain, it trains your brain to say, oh, new is not bad, novice is not bad, this is good, like I'm used to
Right.
this now. And so that's been one of those ways to really cultivate that heart for being a novice, at least in one specific area at a time.
I love that. Just love it. And talk about vulnerability when that bullwhip comes back at
Oh
you,
boy,
talking about feeling a little bit
I got
vulnerable.
welts. I got welts, and it's so funny because interestingly enough, I got asked to speak at a men's conference a while back, and we were talking about all the different things that was going to happen over this weekend at this men's conference, and they were like, well, we want to, we want them to learn that, we want them to do your keynote and your workshops, but what can we have them do outside of that? And they were talking about all these different experiences. We were at this beautiful resort, and I said, is there a space where I could bring a bullwhip? And they're like, what? And it was hilarious because all the guys on the call were probably in their 50s and 60s, and all of them just very quickly became 5 and 6 year olds. It was just like, wait, what? Of course you can bring a bullwhip. Bring that bullwhip. And it was hilarious because then, as you can imagine, like there is technique to it. And that a lot of men especially try to muscle it. And it's not about the muscle. And it was great because it wound up being one of the favorite breakouts. It was such a simple thing and it was so metaphor rich. And one of the most successful people there, he probably was, I don't know, probably close to a billionaire. He went at first and tried to muscle it because you could tell that's probably how he'd had a lot of success. And over the course of the weekend, he realized he had to hold loosely, he had to follow through. It was so metaphor rich. And I love that. And that's kind of the picture of giving yourself permission to be new at something. It can't help but have a ripple effect in other things in your life.
Oh, so good. Such a great way to start in this, inviting people into permission.
Right. I love
Another
it.
thing that we talked about in as people are new
Yeah.
in an adventure, and especially if they're going to be new in being business owners, it's
Right.
so
Which is
different
the
to be a
ultimate
business
adventure.
owner, isn't it though? And it's so different than being an employee, whether
Yes.
you're a leader employee or it's just so different.
Right.
So sometimes when we come from big success or big, even a big title and a big
Yep.
paycheck and a big,
Yep.
and then we're switching into something else. The permission we might need to give ourselves is to start small. And
Yes.
small might feel very, very foreign if we've been big for a
If
long
we've
time. What are
been
your thoughts
big,
about
yes.
that?
Oh, it's so, so true. And that's, I know, from our conversation, that's exactly my story. I was in the pharmaceutical industry and kind of rose up through the ranks and was managing or helping to manage a, $2 billion pharmaceutical training department. And so I had big budgets. I had big teams. I never had to work on the details and the small stuff. There were people for that. And then I got promoted into a bad fit job, which I thought was going to be great. And it immediately, like within a day, I knew I'd made a
A
terrible,
day, Mitch?
within
A
a day,
day?
within a
Oh,
day.
wow.
It was amazing. It was one of those that I think God was like, oh, kiddo, I've got you. But, truly in that situation, I went for the thing that made sense as opposed to, for me, praying through it and really discerning. At the same time, I will say I'm wildly blessed for that because I knew I wasn't supposed to spend the rest of my days in the pharmaceutical world. So getting promoted into that bad fit job was the ultimate wake up call to say, hey, buddy, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. But we also, and I think I told you, I joke about it now. It was painful at the time, but we were living a sitcom life. I was working, my wife was staying home with our boys. And so we had single income, two children, oppressive mortgage. So, like, I couldn't just quit my day job. I had to start small and do it on the side. And I knew that I wanted to coach. I knew that I wanted to speak. I knew that someday I wanted to do it full time, but I couldn't just quit that day job and just hope and pray that my business would catch me. So I started to build it on the side. I started to run these little experiments. I set up a website. I did do some training and some coach certifications that had no business training at all. So I had to figure it out myself, like a lot of people. And I thought it was going to be a 5-year journey to be able to do this, but we were able to put something together now we teach called the 6-figure sequence that we were able to do that through a lot of prayer, a lot of hard work, a lot of God's blessing. What I thought was going to be 5 years wound up being 5 months, but it was through experiment, 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 and it made all the difference. But we had to do that, and we still have to do that. It's amazing. As we try new things, as we launch new things, you still have to give yourself that permission to start small. Like there are certain
Right.
projects that we're working on that really won't see the big light of day with the public for well, at least 6 months, maybe next year. But we're doing these little experiments now, even though our business, we're in our 22nd year or more of our business. We're still running those small experiments on the side to limit the risk and maximize what we learn. And it makes it a lot more fun too.
So good. So a couple things that I want to reinforce that Mitch
Yeah.
said to make sure you heard that out there is that it does take a little bit of a runway and sometimes longer or short to like getting upset with your job and quitting without any safety net. I work with coaches who sometimes do that, and then they're in a place of desperation
Yep.
and panic, and that's not attractive. So,
Exactly.
please listen to what Mitch said in as much as, okay, maybe you know that you have a calling to something else, but what's your plan? What's your
Yep.
plan for that? And then Mitch, what's the like little thing you hear in commercials? These results are not typical.
That's exactly right.
Mitch being able to make it happen in 5 months. What I would say about that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, you were very intentional.
Yep.
You put place things in place. You had the safety net of your income for those months while you did that,
That's exactly right.
but it's like it didn't just magically happen. You didn't
Nope.
just like, I'm going to be a coach. Let me hang
Yep.
a sign that I'm a coach now and everybody flocks to me. You had to do things to
You
make that
had to do
happen.
the work. You have to do the work. And for us, I can't remember if we talked about this, but one specific strategy that helped me a ton, and I think it was divinely inspired because I'm not this smart, but we came up with something we called our leap number. And I'm a big prayer guy. My wife's a big prayer person. And there were days where I would come home and she'd be like, "That's it. Just quit your job. We're just going to trust that it'll work." And I'd be like, "No, we can't do that." And then there'd be days where I'd come home and it'd say, "I want to quit." My wife would be like, "No, we can't do that." All those things. So we kept, together, we kept our heads, but we decided that we needed to set a goal. And one of the things that I realized was I looked at the way that different people had done this thing of building something on the side, whether it's a coaching business or some other kind of business. I saw there were really two different ways to do it. One way to do it that I saw was that people would work and work and work and save a year or more to live on. And then they'd quit and try to launch their business. But what I would often see with that model is that people would work and work and work and have a year's worth of savings, and then they'd quit. And then they decided, you know what? I've worked really hard. I'm going to take a month off because I deserve it, which they do, right? And then they come back, and then it's like, oh, well, Aunt Nancy got sick. What are we going to do? You know what? I'll go stay with Aunt Nancy a little bit. And then another month goes by, and then another month goes by, and another
Right.
month goes by. And then they're in the world of
And
hurt.
that cushion is getting eaten and eaten and
Exactly
eaten.
right.
Yeah.
And they don't have their business, right? Versus the savings is one model. The other model was systems. And I started to see that as I put my business in place and started to work it on the side, what I wanted to focus on was systems. And so what my wife and I decided to do was we prayed and got clear on what we called our leap number. And for us, the equation was 3 months in a row, 35% of my revenue, of my income. If I could
Okay.
do that, because I was doing it on the side. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wouldn't be able to completely replace my income. But I said, hey, if I could do this 3 months in a row and hit 35% of that paycheck, that probably means that I could, within a relatively short period of time, be able to get 100% if I'm
Scale
working
it up.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And so that's what we decided to do. And it was great because that became our prayer target, like literally saying, like, Lord, when we're ready, help us to hit this goal. And it was so funny. You would appreciate this, Meg. Is the first month I did it. I blew it out of the water. I think I landed at 37%. I'm like, this is going to be so easy. We got this. And then the next month, goose eggs, nothing. And it was like, oh boy, uh-oh, right? But then I doubled down and said, wait, you know what? I coasted.
But
I hit
I've
my
shown that I've
goal.
been able to do it. Yeah.
Exactly right. I hit my goal and I coasted. It's like, wait, this whole thing is about systems and getting these things in place. So then I doubled down on the systems and hit my goal, hit my goal, hit my goal. And that's one of the other reasons why we were able to launch full time into 5 months, again, with the power of prayer and God's blessing and things too. But we were able to do that and with that focus. And I'm with you. I think there are people, I know me included, that are so tempted to take that blind leap of faith that they think they have to take. And I'm a bigger fan, and you see it all the time in the Bible and scripture and a lot of success stories. Sometimes it takes a big blind leap of faith, but most of the time it's consistent steps of faith over time. And that's what I'm a big believer in. That's what I think we're called to. And oftentimes systems are a part of that.
And because how often do we hear somebody like say they have had a good month and then they have, like you said, goose, and then they're
Yep.
like, oh, like all they do is because we are wired for negative bias as part of
Right.
our survival. So then all we do is look at the goose eggs versus, wait a minute, I was doing something right. I mean, we help our clients do this.
Right.
Let's
It's
apply it
exactly
to
right.
ourselves.
That's
I was
exactly right.
doing something. So I love that, you kind of, okay, wait a minute.
Yep.
I've got the system, and so I just need to double down on that. And maybe give yourself permission, like we said, to be new at something and to
Yep.
look at what are the systems that are working.
Yep.
Who are maybe the new people I need in my life, huh?
Yep.
Or like what other elements of permission kind of work into the story that we're telling?
Yeah, I love that. And you just tapped on something that is so, so important, especially when it comes to permission. And especially, I think in life, in leadership, but especially as we're either starting or growing a coaching and speaking business. And you just touched on it just very briefly. That's your brilliance. You drop these pieces of gold. It's like, don't miss it. But you just mentioned, who do we know? Like, who's in our tribe? And I know for me, when I had corporate success, I had a very narrow network. The people that I knew were the people that were in my industry, the people that were in my department, people that did exactly what I did. I, because my schedule was crazy, I didn't intentionally, or at least use that as the excuse, I didn't intentionally go outside my current network because at the time that would have felt very uncomfortable, right? Because, hey, reaching out, starting new relationships, starting new friendships, starting new connections in your network, sometimes it feels like a risk. But boy, that makes all the difference in the world. So I always say, as you're thinking about new dreams, new goals, part of it is giving yourself permission to start a new tribe. Now, that doesn't mean you full scale like boot everybody that you know out of your current network and start fresh.
You're dead to me.
Yeah,
I'm on to
that's
a new
exactly.
tribe.
I'm
Yes.
I'm
No.
erasing you from my phone. You're done. It's not that, but you might have to do some of that as you're going after new dreams because I know I was just speaking at a conference this week and I did a session with about 100 young leaders and we were talking about going after new dreams and new goals. And I said, one of the things that as you start to go after something new, some of your friends, your current people in your network, are going to love it. And some of your friends and current people in your network are not going to love it. They might even hate it. And I
And
said,
they
Do you
might
know?
tell you about it.
Exactly right. And I said, Do you want to know why? I said, Well, some of your people might be discerning and you know who's really smart and who's really for you. And if they bring concern, you should probably pay attention to it. But there's probably at least one, if not more, of your current friends that are going to get uncomfortable with your growth because it reminds them that they're not growing.
Right.
And
So let
those
me
are the
keep
kind of
you
people you have to
small
watch
so
out
I
for.
feel better.
That's
Yes.
exactly right. That's exactly right. And those people exist in your current network. And so oftentimes a new dream, a new goal, a new business takes some new people in your tribe. You got
Mhm.
to surround yourself with people who are doing something similar, maybe doing the same thing, but are open to being collaborative. I know that that makes all the difference in the world. But it that at the same time starts to feel a little uncomfortable sometimes when you start to have some friends drop off or when you don't have as much time to spend with that one friend who when you have coffee with them or have a quick call with them, you feel slimed. Like, you have to give yourself permission to say, you know what, I'm not going to make as much time for that friend anymore. Not because I don't love them, but it's just because I need to be doing these bigger, newer things. And so part of it's, surrounding yourself with some new folks and maybe making the conscious choice to eliminate or spend a little less time with certain folks.
Difficult, and yet, the people that we spend time with have a huge impact
Oh boy.
on what we're able to do. You also mentioned something that I want to be sure we make time for as we're running out of time in our
Yeah.
interview, but you talked about like collaboration
Yes.
and you said to me, and I wrote
Yeah.
it down because it was so good. You said the world needs coaches and other coaches are not your competition coaches.
Yes.
What is the competition?
So
Do
I
you
love
remember
I, I
something?
love talking about this because I think it is so important because the world does need more coaches. And even though there are many coaches, we are far outnumbered as far as the need goes. And one of my mentors, very early on, when we were having a conversation about this very thing, he could tell I was feeling competitive. I was looking at what other coaches were doing and sometimes judging or judging myself, saying I'm behind or I'm ahead, whatever it was. And he said, Stop. He said, Other coaches are not your competition. Your biggest competition, and he waited. He paused for effect. I leaned in. We were sitting at a Panera. I'll never forget. I leaned in like, What? What? He made me like hang there. He goes, Your biggest competition as a coach is the couch. It's always going to be the couch. It's the thing that the person that might hire you as a coach is probably not shopping for coaches. They're probably not considering five other coaches, but they are looking at that big dream, that goal, that thing that you're going to help them do. And at the same time, they're looking at the comfort of the couch and Netflix and their playlist that's calling and the watch list that is sitting there waiting to be consumed, right? And he was like, that's your biggest competition. So focus on that. Focus on that person and inspiring and motivating and equipping them to do the thing they were put on the planet to do that goal, to do that dream. He's like, if you focus on that, you will the whole competition with other coaches thing will melt away. You'll be a lot more open to being collaborative, learning from, teaching to other coaches, and you're also going to help a lot more people. And I found that as long as I embrace that, I can work all day long and boy, have a lot more energy and have a lot more fun.
And are open to what does potential collaboration bring to my life, to my
Right.
clients' lives.
Well,
So,
and
so,
that's, I
so
mean, like
good.
you and I talking here, right? This is the picture of that, right? Like you and I could see each other as competitors because, we both help high achievers. We both equip coaches, all those kinds of things. But you and I both know the need is huge. Plus,
Yeah.
you can tell, like, well, hopefully listeners, you can tell, like, we get energized. Like, I'm going to walk away from this hour way more energized than I came in. And I mean, this is my second cup of coffee, people. Like, I'm serious. Like, like, this is why we do this is find those people that
Right.
energize you. And I do find this, Meg, I don't know, sometimes people will ask me, like, how do I find those people that energize me? How do I find those people to collaborate with? And my first question is always, well, who are you doing that for?
Oh,
If you want to have more of those people in your life, start. Be that for someone else. When you are that for someone else, it's amazing how many of those people show up in your life.
very true. Like, absolutely true. And with that being said, like this is one of my saddest, like I have to draw this interview to a close because I just want to keep
I love
talking
it.
to.
We'll have to do part two at some point. I'd love it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But this is what I'd like, and this is what I would like to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you want to be sure that people are thinking about as we close out the interview? Like,
Yeah.
what is that piece?
I love it. Well, interestingly enough, I recently interviewed an Academy Award winning special effects artist and a best-selling author. They teamed up to write a book. And that actually was their second book. I interviewed them for their first book, then their second book. And I was just talking with them. And it was great because we were talking about their first book was a huge success. And so the publisher asked them to do a second book. And we were just talking about, they've had incredible commercial success with the book. They both had incredible careers. And I asked them both, I was like, if you had to do it all again, or what would you say? What's the most important piece of advice? And Marshall Julius, the co-author and best-selling author, he said that something that was so good. He said, I could tell you that working hard is going to guarantee you success. He's like, but I'm going to be honest. I can't tell you. I can't promise you that. There are a lot of people that have worked hard that haven't been successful. He's like, and that's sad. At the same time, why not? He's like, what if you just gave you, and this is my language, not his, but like, what if you gave yourself permission to start? You have to acknowledge there is a risk. You have to acknowledge it may not work, right? At the same time, why not? And I think for your listeners, there's a very good chance that as we've been talking about giving yourself permission to start something, begin something. Maybe it's reignite an old dream, start a new goal, whatever it is, giving yourself permission to be a novice, all those things, surrounding yourself with some new people that might encourage you and you encourage them. It's like, sure, it may not work out. It may not be a success, but what if? What if you gave yourself permission anyway? Because I know for me, like you have to acknowledge, sure, it may not be a success, but it is amazing. The people that do take those steps, those consistent steps over time, boy, those people tend to be a lot more successful and have a lot richer lives. So why not? Like start. What if you gave yourself permission? So as I say this, I'm guessing that as I ask the question, what do you know? What's that nudge? What's that thing when you've heard this conversation on permission? What's been that thing that's been knocking on your heart, on your mind of saying, you know what, that's the thing I'm going to start with. That's what I wonder for that listener is say, all right, you know what it is, so why not start? Start small. Say what's 15 minutes I could devote towards this today, right? And just see where it takes you.
So, 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 so good. Mitch, we're going to have links for people to connect with you either
Yes.
below the YouTube video or in the show notes. But just throw one, like, what's one way for
Best
people to
place,
connect
best
with you?
place to start is just go to mitchmatthews.com. That's where we got a lot of resources, free resources. We've got a couple of podcasts, those types of things, and definitely just come on over. We'll take good care of you. But Meg, I just love this conversation. It's so good, and I so appreciate the opportunity to get to talk with your amazing tribe.
I so appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, when we have incredible guests on the show, which is all the time, and they're incredible like Mitch, then you want to probably follow their podcast as well. So be sure to look up the Dream Think Do podcast and hit subscribe to that one as well so that you can do a deeper dive into Mitch's incredible conversations because you just got a taste of him, and I know you want more of that. So, speaking of wanting more, I want to thank you again for following us today, for dropping in on this interview. I challenge you to take something that you've learned today and apply it to what you're going to do this afternoon, tomorrow. Challenge yourself to step into not just learning, but then implementing. And as always, and I know I say this every single week, and you guys are probably like, oh, there goes Meg again. But we really are all on this planet together for a reason. And we have more in common than we do differences. And if we can look for that, and if we can look for how we can collaborate and learn and grow, and yes, make choices about who we spend time with, but in general, let's do the heavy lifting together because that's why we were all created, and that's why we're occupying this earth together. So, with that, go forth, be kind to yourself, be kind to one another. Thanks for being a Star Coach listener. And until next week, you have an awesome week. Mitch Matthews, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.